Welcome to the deep dive. Today, well, we're looking at something maybe a bit unexpected for Lessons on Modernity, Chapter 5, from Sun Tzu's The Art of War. It's often called energy or sometimes shi.
Hmm.
You sent this chapter over thinking about its main ideas and, if they actually connect to anything beyond ancient battles.
Right.
So, our mission today is basically to unpack these themes, energy, momentum, that sort of thing, and see how, or even if they resonate with, well, how we operate now.
Yeah, it's a really interesting chapter. I mean, obviously, the art of war is huge for military thinking, but this energy chapter digs into something broader. It's
Okay.
about like how you generate and direct force or effort
Yeah.
effectively. And that applies whether you're, commanding troops or just trying to get anything done with, say, limited resources. It's sort of the art of making the biggest splash you can.
Making the biggest splash. I like that. Okay, so let's get into it. The chapter kicks off saying that managing large forces or small forces, it's the same basic idea, dividing their numbers, which on the face of it sounds almost too simple. What's the real takeaway there?
Well, I think the deeper point isn't just splitting things up. It's about um, scalable leadership
Hmm.
and having really clear lines of command.
Right.
By breaking the big group into smaller chunks, each with its own leader, you build a system where control doesn't just evaporate when you scale up.
Okay.
Think about any big company that works well. It's got layers, right? Managers, team leads, each person responsible for their bit. Sun Tzu is basically laying out the foundation for effective delegation centuries ago.
That clicks immediately, yeah. Like in a business, you wouldn't expect the CEO to manage every single person directly. You
Exactly.
need those layers. It also makes me think of that anecdote about Han Xin talking to the emperor about army size.
Oh, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great illustration. The emperor asks Han Xin, how many soldiers could you command? And Han Xin says something like, oh, maybe 100,000 tops.
Right.
But then the emperor asks, what about you? And Han Xin goes, me. Oh, the more the better.
Yeah.
And it's not just bragging, right? It shows that different leadership roles have different spans of control.
Yeah.
The emperor's job was the big picture, the overall strategy. Han Keen was the guy who could actually lead huge numbers because he knew how to divide and manage effectively.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, this is where it gets interesting for me. After that, Sun Tzu brings up signs and signals, flags, drums, gongs,
Hmm.
as the way to command these big divided forces. He says it makes fighting with a huge army the same as fighting with a small one, which feels, I don't know, almost primitive now with all our tech. What's the lesson that lasts?
Well, the tech is obviously worlds apart, yeah, but the basic principle, I think it holds up completely.
How so?
Those old school signals, they highlight just how crucial, clear, like unmistakable communication is, especially when things are complex or chaotic.
Uh-huh.
Imagine the noise and confusion of a battle. Shouting orders? Forget it. But a specific drum beat, a certain flag movement, everyone understands that instantly. It cuts through the noise.
So even today, with emails and Slack and everything, the real point isn't about having fancier tools, but making sure the message itself, however you send it, is crystal clear. No room for guessing, especially when you're coordinating big teams or complicated projects.
Precisely, yeah. Whether it's, using standardized radio protocols in an emergency or having super clear project briefs or even just making sure everyone knows what a meeting is for,
Yeah,
it's all about establishing clear signals so everyone's on the same page.
got it. Okay, next. The chapter brings in Qing and Qi, the direct and the indirect approach. This feels like a really core strategic idea. How do they work together?
Yeah, they're fundamental. So Cheng is your straightforward move, the expected attack, the orthodox tactic, what the enemy sees coming or thinks they see coming.
Okay.
Chi is the surprise, the flank attack, the clever feint, the unorthodox move. And Sun Tzu's point is you need both. You can't just rely on one.
So you blend them.
Exactly. Your Cheng can pin the enemy down, make them commit their resources. Then your Chi hits them where they didn't expect it, exploits a weakness. There's even commentary that says basically facing the enemy head on is Cheng. Making a side move is Chi.
So it's like creating a 1-2 punch. You show them one thing, the Qing, to fix their attention,
Uh-huh.
and then the Qi delivers the actual blow somewhere else where they're vulnerable, like a boxer using jabs to set up the big right hook.
That's a perfect analogy. The real power is in that combination. If you're only direct, you might just run into a wall. If you're only indirect, maybe you lack the necessary punch.
Right.
But weave them together. You keep the opponent guessing, create openings. Think about A product launch. Your Cheng might be the big ad campaign everyone sees. Your Qi could be a really targeted, maybe slightly sneaky social media blitz that grabs a specific audience.
I see. Okay. Following that, Sun Tzu discusses exploiting weakness and strength, keeping your own plans hidden while figuring out the enemies, and creating perceptions, making yourself look strong or weak when needed. This sounds very
It
psychological.
absolutely is. It's about managing the information flow. You know,
Mm-hmm.
control what the other side knows or thinks they know.
Okay.
If you hide your real strength and intentions, the enemy has to guess. They
Yeah.
make decisions based on bad info, which means they're more likely to mess up. And yeah, projecting strength can deter them, while projecting weakness might lure them into a trap you've set.
That story about Kaozu and the Sumnu spies really brings that home, doesn't it?
Yeah. Classic example.
The enemy deliberately showed their worst troops, their skinny horses, completely fooled the emperor's spies, led to a total disaster for Kaozu. It's a strong warning about trusting appearances.
Definitely. And the takeaway isn't just be sneaky. It's more about how vital good intelligence is, and the need to critically evaluate what you think you see. Don't just accept the surface picture, whether it's war or business deals or, frankly, anything competitive.
He then touches on simulating disorder, which sounds counterintuitive. Why make your own side look disorganized?
Well, the idea is to confuse the enemy. If they look at your forces and can't tell if you're actually falling apart or just pretending, they hesitate.
Oh, okay.
They don't know whether to attack or wait or what your real plan is. It can mask your actual movements, too. Think of, like, a sports team using a really messy-looking formation just before snapping into a perfectly timed play.
So it's a kind of smokescreen, making it harder for the other side to read you and react effectively. It actually sounds a bit like in cybersecurity, they use honeypots, fake, vulnerable-looking systems to attract attackers away from the real prize.
That's a great modern parallel. Yeah, the principle's the same. Misdirection, creating uncertainty. It works across totally different fields.
Okay, next big concept. Combined energy. Sun Tzu uses these images like rolling logs or stones down a mountain, getting faster, more powerful. What's the core idea here?
Combined energy, or shi, which is maybe a better translation sometime, it's about the extra force you get when everyone pulls together in the right way. It's synergy, basically.
Okay.
It's not just adding up everyone's individual strength. It's the momentum, the power that comes from unified action, directed skillfully by the leader. That image of the round stone rolling down a steep hill, it captures it perfectly. Potential energy plus a clear path plus motion equals something almost unstoppable.
So it's about alignment, focus, getting everyone moving in the same direction.
Exactly. A team where everyone gets their role and they're all pushing for the same goal, that's always going to have more impact than just a bunch of talented people doing their own thing.
Right.
You mentioned Chow Cole calling it the use of natural or inherent power. That fits too. It's like tapping into the potential that's already there, but focusing it, channeling it.
So in a modern context, like a company, this could be about having a really strong shared culture or a clear vision that everyone buys into, leading to more impact than just having separate departments working in silos.
Precisely. That's a great way to think about it. It generates that momentum.
Then the chapter pivots a bit, talking about concentration versus dispersion. Sun Tzu says if you try to defend everywhere, you end up weak everywhere.
Right.
But if you concentrate your strength, you force the enemy to spread out and react to you. This sounds like a basic rule of using resources wisely.
It really is. It's classic strategic thinking. Where do you put your limited time, money, effort for the biggest bang for your buck?
Yeah.
Trying to cover every single possibility just stretches you too thin. But if you focus your power on key points, the decisive points, you gain an advantage there.
Yeah.
And yeah, it forces the other side to react, often by dispersing their forces, which then creates new weaknesses you can hit.
That quote you mentioned from Colonel Henderson really nails it. Compel the enemy to disperse, then concentrate superior force against each fraction.
Exactly. It's about seizing the initiative, dictating the fight.
And the example of Blucher arriving at Waterloo, concentrating his Prussians on Napoleon's flank at just the right moment, shows how decisive that can be.
Absolutely. Even if you're technically outnumbered overall, focusing your force at the critical spot at the critical time, that can win the day. And this applies everywhere, right? Marketing focusing on one key demographic, R&D pouring resources into the most promising project.
Yeah.
It's the same logic.
The chapter then talks about avoiding fixed conditions, using analogies like the seasons changing, the moon waxing and waning. The main point seems pretty clear: be adaptable.
Definitely. The world isn't static, right? Whether it's a battlefield, a market, whatever landscape you're in, things change.
Hmm.
Sticking rigidly to one plan when the situation shifts, that's asking for trouble.
Yeah.
You've got to be flexible. You've got to be willing to adjust your approach based on what's actually happening. That's key to surviving, let alone succeeding.
It's a good reminder nothing stays the same. What worked yesterday might not work tomorrow. Constant assessment, constant adjustment.
Exactly. Being agile, willing to learn, willing to pivot. It's essential now, more than ever, I think.
The chapter also briefly mentions things like forced marches and keeping spirits high, that human element again. And then it circles back to the signals, the gongs and drums. Chang Yu's quote is quite striking. 1,000,000 soldiers move as one when sight and hearing align.
Yeah, it really drives home how vital that unified communication is for coordinated action on a huge scale.
Right.
When everyone sees the same flag, hears the same drumbeat, and knows exactly what it means, it creates immense power and focus. In that little story about Li Kuang-pi using torches at night, shows how even simple signals can be used cleverly for deception or control.
Then the focus shifts to morale attacking the enemy's spirit, not just their bodies. That feels like a deeper level of strategy.
It often is.
Yeah.
Why fight a bloody battle if you can make the enemy lose their will to fight beforehand? Undermine their confidence, make them feel hopeless, convince them defeat is coming. You break their resistance with far less cost, potentially.
Sun Tzu also warns against pushing a beaten enemy too hard or blocking a retreating army, because a cornered rat fights harder, essentially.
Exactly. Desperation is a powerful motivator. The examples you mentioned, like Tao's risky retreat or Fu Yanqing's charge in the sandstorm, they show what happens when people feel they have nothing left to lose. Sometimes letting the enemy go is the smarter, safer play. Prevents a final, bloody, unnecessary stand.
The chapter also covers using lures and provocations, baiting the enemy, understanding their temper, like if they're easily angered and using that against them, like Yao Xing being goaded into attacking too soon.
Yeah, it's about playing on their psychology again, exploiting their greed or their pride or their impatience. If you know what makes them tick, you can sometimes nudge them into making terrible mistakes.
Then there's that whole list of signs to watch for how birds act, the type of dust clouds, how the enemy soldiers talk or act. It's like this incredible checklist for reading the battlefield.
It really shows Sun Tzu's depth of understanding, doesn't it? Warfare wasn't just about numbers and maneuvers for him. It was about reading everything. The environment, human behavior under stress, tiny clues, putting it all together to get the real picture.
Yeah. The chapter wraps up with points on things like fighting when numbers are equal, the danger of underestimating any opponent, the balance of attachment and discipline with troops using terrain, and then there's 6 specific ways armies fall apart, the conditions leading to defeat. It's a really dense conclusion.
It ties a lot together, yeah.
Yeah.
It highlights that effective leadership is this mix of smart strategy, good tactics, knowing how to lead people, understanding your own side and the enemy. And those 6 conditions for defeat, they're like the big don't do this warning: flight, insubordination, collapse, all stemming from failures in leadership or preparation.
So, stepping back from chapter 5, this whole idea of energy, it really does seem to ripple out into so many modern areas, doesn't it?
I think so.
We've talked about leadership, communication, strategy, direct versus indirect, understanding your competition or challenges, building momentum, being adaptable, the need for good information, and just the sheer human element in any big effort.
Absolutely. The context is ancient warfare, obviously, but the core principles, they feel pretty timeless. They apply to almost any situation where you're trying to achieve something significant, especially against obstacles or competition. It's about how you gather, focus, and apply your energy, whatever form that takes. Doing it smartly with awareness.
This has been really fascinating. Okay, so looking ahead, our next deep dive will be chapter 6. The title is Weak Points and Strong. Based on everything we've just discussed about energy generating it, directing it, what should we expect from a chapter focused on weak and strong points?
Well, it feels like the logical next step, doesn't it? If chapter 5 is about generating and managing the force, the energy, then chapter 6, weak points and strong, is likely about where to apply that energy for maximum effect. It'll probably delve into identifying vulnerabilities in your opponent, but crucially in yourself too. And then figuring out how to exploit their weaknesses while protecting your own strengths. It's about precision targeting, really. Applying that energy where it counts the most.
Makes sense. Applying the energy with precision sounds like another crucial piece of Sun Tzu's puzzle. Well, thank you for joining me on this deep dive into energy.
My pleasure.
It really is amazing how much insight you can still draw from texts written centuries ago for navigating, well, our world. We hope you, the listener, will think about this concept of energy, this focus power, this momentum, and how it shows up in your own life, your work, the challenges you're tackling. Maybe, just maybe, the key, as Sun Tzu hinted, lies in learning how to harness and direct your energy with that kind of strategic clarity.